The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of KSMQ Public Service Media Incorporated or its assigns.
Welcome to Garden Connections. I'm your host, Stephanie Passingham. Today we'll learn about an important connection between beautiful flowers and football with Randy Bodine in Mason City. Chef Larson treats us to another delicious recipe, and Shelley Pederson gives us a to-do list for our fall gardens. Stay with us for Garden Connections. Randy and Nellie Bodine live on a quiet street in Mason City. Beautiful trees line the drive with pleasant houses and the cheerful chirping of birds. A beautiful garden is the focal point of a public median. But underneath this calm facade lies a tension in the neighborhood. As fall approaches, the sound of lawnmowers takes an ominous turn. Will they survive? Will fate and the gridiron save the day? Will beauty and grace triumph? Or will they fall to the sharp blade of defeat? Stay tuned. Today we're in Mason City, Iowa, and we're here with Randy Bodine, and he has done a wonderful job creating a beautiful public space for his neighborhood. Welcome to the program, Randy.
Thank you, Stephanie.
So have you always been a gardener?
Oh, probably for 25, 30 years.
Did you have a mentor or anyone that you learned gardening from?
Oh, you know, there's been a couple guys along the street that have helped me, and I have one friend that's quite elderly today that was the head of the Mason City Garden Club. His name's Lyle Hilmer, and he gave me a lot of good tips over the years.
All right, great. Gardeners love to share, don't they?
Sure.
So you have this space in the middle of the street. Now, how did you get a hold of a garden in the middle of the street?
Well, this road, which is Springview Drive, it used to stop right here, and they made this, and this was made into a cul-de-sac. And then in about 1975 or so, they opened it up and made the street, but they left this here. But they left this here, and which so was empty,
kind of in the middle of the street. So it was just turf.
Yeah,
just
that's
a lawn.
correct.
All right. And so, how did you get the idea to put in a beautiful flower bed?
We started it back in the 80s. It would have been the early 80s. And then we just developed into a nicer garden and kept adding to it, and to the point where we are now.
My favorite part about your flower garden is its theme. You are a huge Cyclones fan.
Correct.
And so your garden started out as a tribute to your football team. Tell us that story.
Well, the kids were all going to college down at Iowa State, and two of my friends here, they're currently deceased now, but they were big Iowa State fans. So the three of us were Iowa State fans, and so we thought, well, this would be a nice thing to put a lot of yellow and reds in, and that was Iowa State's colors.
Right.
And so it got to be known over the years as the Iowa State Flower Garden.
And so originally this was all just yellow and red, school colors.
That's correct.
All right. And you've branched out a little bit. Are you changing loyalties, or?
I'm trying to figure out if I'm liberal or conservative.
Okay. Because you still have one in school, right?
Oh yeah, I still got one kid at Ames, yeah.
All right. So you still have some gold and some red for that one.
Oh yeah.
As well. How do you decide what kind of flowers you want to plant out here?
Well, you know, we've planted a lot of different kinds, and I really look at the colors more than anything, and I like to combine yellows and purples and reds, and they really show up nice.
Mm-hmm. Nice contrast,
mm-hmm.
Very much so. And you've added something new. You've given some height to the garden here.
Yep.
Tell us how you decided to do that. That was an interesting story as well.
Well, I have my son that's currently at Ames. He decided that he came home one weekend. He decided he wanted to go to college over at in China, at Shanghai, and so I said, well, it's probably a good idea while you're young. And so he went over there for a semester to college, and my wife and I went over and visited him. And during the time that he wasn't going to class, we would go for walks. And Shanghai's known for its parks, and the Chinese people love their parks and take advantage of them. And they have just beautiful flower gardens over there. And I noticed that they'd have a flower garden, and all of a sudden there'd be a hump right in the middle of it. and they'd accent the flowers. And I thought, well, that would be something that would work good here. So that's how it got started.
And it does. It elevates them nicely, kind of puts the accent on them in the middle. I like
That's
that
right.
idea.
Yep.
So Iowa State. What happens when football time comes around?
You know, I don't know what the percentages are, but my guess would be 70% of the people along Springview Drive here are Iowa fans, and probably 30% are Iowa State fans.
Oh, so you guys are in the minority.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Okay.
And so I'm kind of doing this on my own, and I've got a lot of competition out there that in fact they've asked me to some year change and plant Iowa colors, but I can't do that because I can't find black flowers.
Well, that's right. That would be really difficult.
So.
And so why would some of your fellow Iowa State fans be a little nervous about the game as it relates to this lovely flower bed?
Well, I've been known that the Sunday following the games, that if we lose, I've been known to mow it over. Whether I'll do it this year or not. Now this is a new angle that we have here because it's a lot prettier than I've had in the past. So
you've introduced some new colors, right?
well, and it's going to be a little bit harder to mow over when I've gone to all this work. But
right.
but I guess you'll have to come by September in September and see what happens after the game and see whether I mow it over or not.
How do you decide which plants to put? Obviously, you look at color. That is a primary importance because you need those red and gold colors. But what else do you look for in flowers that you put out?
Well, like in the center, we've got the wave petunias, and I like those because they don't take a lot of work. And then I like these. Next to them, I've got these. I call them African marigolds, because they have the large flower head and they do add to the beauty. And so I like to combine those. And then this year we put a row of wave petunias around the outside, and then of course the red salvia really is the red salvia. I think really makes the garden look nice. Plus we try to take care of the grass as good as we can.
Well, let's take a closer look at some of these plants, shall we?
Okay, sure.
So these look great, but I see you were mentioning that yesterday you were out here working on it and had everything cleaned up beautifully, and then just in one day.
Yep.
And do you come out and deadhead every day?
Yes, every day that's one thing, Richard.
So you just pull them right off?
Yep.
Oh, look at that, they pop right off.
Yep, they pop right off. We go in and deadhead all the brown ones every day. We take them off.
And this is just heat and dryness, isn't it?
This is what it does, and this time of year, and you've just got to do that, or the new ones won't come. Yep. And you can see new ones coming right here.
And here's some new buds. Yep. And really, the full ones look beautiful. Yeah. How long does a blossom typically last?
You know, I don't know that, but I would say at least 3 or 4 weeks. Okay. I don't know the answer exactly, but we take off a pailful every day. So.
Every day. Wow, a whole pailful. And the centerpiece, you keep that in place with just a landscape border.
Yeah. Yep, and I'll take that out this fall though, and then I'll dig these out and put new dirt in this next spring.
Okay, just to rejuvenate it a little bit.
And I'll just spread that dirt around here along with leaves and things, chop up leaves. And
Yep, because these are just annuals. Nothing stays in the ground.
That's right.
Over the winter.
That's right.
All right. Well, this is definitely a lot of work, and I understand that you allow the enemy to help you a little bit sometimes.
Well, I have, and he's a good enemy.
He's a good enemy.
He's a good enemy.
Richard Nelson, I understand that you are sometimes in charge of helping with this beautiful garden, but that you are the opposing team, is that right?
That's right.
All right. How long have you been a Hawkeye fan?
Well, 20 years, I guess.
How'd you get roped into helping with an Iowa State garden?
Well, I live across the street, and it benefits me, because I don't have to back out into cement or weeds. And, he's been doing it for 20 years, so he knows what he's doing.
So he knows what he's doing.
So I'm kind of a flunky. I water and I can deadhead and do some of the minor things, but not the technical.
But you're good help. You must be good help if he lets you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got to put up with a lot of hot air, too.
Gardens make for great camaraderie across enemy lines, as it were.
I guess so.
So you tell me about that first year the garden was planted. I understand your team won.
Well, I guess so, because I was not aware of this policy, at that time because I hadn't visited with him that much. And then we came home from being gone someplace, and it was all mowed down. And I thought, well, I wonder what happened. Well, then I found out that Iowa State had lost.
Had lost, and that was
So
the
it
end of
does
the game.
happen,
All right. So what are the prospects this year, Randy? Are we going to see lovely flowers after the game, or what's it
Well,
looking
I
like?
would say there's a good chance that the lawnmower won't be needed.
Okay. Well, you have a lovely garden. You certainly have done a great job
you.
beautifying the neighborhood, and it sounds like you've developed some friendships and some
Yes, we have.
great
Yep.
Community spirit here as well.
We
Randy,
have.
thank you so much for
Oh, you
showing it
bet,
to us and
Stephanie.
sharing those stories.
Thank you
Richard,
very
thank
much
you.
for coming.
Appreciate it. Thankfully, Iowa State was victorious in a close game this year, and the flowers continue to grace the neighborhood, and Randy Bodine is a happy man.
Hi, I'm Chef Stephen Larson. Welcome to my kitchen at Quarter Quarter Restaurant in Harmony, Minnesota. We love our sweet corn in the Midwest, but other people love it too. For instance, in the American Southwest, they make a dish like the one we're going to make next, which is called calabacitas. It's a sautéed mixture of sweet corn, zucchini, and mild roasted green chilies. So to get that started, we're going to cut some corn off the cob here. And you don't have to cook this ahead of time or anything, but if you had some leftover corn on the cob, you could certainly do this with it as a second dish. Now, I like to save these cobs and make a vegetable corn stock out of them. It's quite delicious. All right, so now that we've got our corn, we're going to put that into a hot 12-inch skillet. So that's sitting over high heat, and we're going to do what's called dry frying. That means we're not going to put any oil or water or anything in the pan. And what that's going to do is give us some very quick caramelization and some nice color on the corn right away. So we'll keep that moving for just a minute. Make sure you're using a high heat spatula if you're doing this. You don't want to be melting any rubber into your corn. And you can see how quickly that's already getting some nice little browned spots on it. That's great for building flavor. Okay, so once that's had a minute to cook, we're going to add a couple of tablespoons of corn oil to that. You could use any light vegetable oil if you wanted. Then we're going to add our zucchini. Some salt and pepper. And then we'll continue cooking. Now this just needs to cook for a few minutes for the zucchini to get soft. We don't want to overcook it though, because we want to keep that nice texture. Now that this has had a few minutes to cook, we're going to add our roasted green chilies. Now I made these by taking poblano chilies, that's a mild green chili, and roasting them over an open flame. You cover those for a little while, let them steam, and then you clean the skins off of the outside. Makes for a very mild, very delicious chili flavor without a huge amount of heat. And while that finishes cooking for just a minute, I'm going to show you what we're going to serve it with. On the plate, we have some sautéed chicken breasts that I've made a roasted tomato and pumpkin seed sauce for to kind of pick up that Southwest theme. So we're going to use our calabacitas as a side dish. And for a beautiful, super fresh tasting. So there we have a great dish for summer. Sauteed sweet corn with zucchini and mild green chilies, because there's nothing better than eating fresh from your garden.
Well, thanks to Chef Larson for another great recipe. We're now going to turn our attention to fall in the garden. Fall is a transition time for many families and gardeners. We get back to school, we start thinking about the holidays, but really being in the garden in the fall is a great time. And we have Master Gardener Shelley Pederson, who is here to help us find out what we should be doing in the garden this time of year. Welcome to the program, Shelley. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So our to-do list all summer long has been long. Fall
Watering.
is no different. What are some of the things that we should be paying attention to in the fall?
Well, now is a good time to really assess your garden, where your bare spots are, fall cleanup, do you have enough mulch, do you need to water before the winter sets in, a little bit of pruning, and what you're going to do to prepare your lawn for winter and store chemicals and things like that.
Okay, so lots to look at. Let's start with maybe some pruning, because that is a topic that many folks are a little tentative about. What kind of pruning should they be doing in the fall?
I recommend light pruning in the fall. The Minnesota winters have changed, so we don't get these cold snaps that stay, which I enjoy. But because of that, if you prune heavily in the fall, sometimes if we have a cold snap, it'll push it out of dormancy when it warms up, and then you might lose that tree or shrub.
Okay.
So I recommend, the rule of thumb is if it blooms in the spring, prune it in the fall. Okay. And if it blooms in the fall, prune it in the spring.
Okay. Flowering
shrubs should be pruned 2 weeks after they're done blooming. So your lilacs, your forsythia, things like that, spirea.
Okay.
Prune those and shape them. Now you can shape any time during the year. Just to fix things, you may lose some blooms, but you can shape. So light pruning in the fall for now, and when it gets dead of winter, that's when you'd want to do your trees.
Do your trees. Now, if you prune some of those spring blooming plants in the fall, you're going to have a pretty dramatic impact on your spring blooms. Is that correct?
Like your lilacs, they have set their blooms. So you do not want to trim those hard right now. Obviously, you can take out dead wood anytime during the year.
Okay.
And so, like I say, if it's a flowering shrub, 2 weeks after it's done flowering. Your hydrangeas are blooming now, so they would be cleaned up and pruned lightly in the spring.
Okay.
Your dogwoods, though, viburnum, those could be pruned lightly now.
Okay. All
and
right. What about other cleanup and I'm thinking removal of vines or leaves, or I had a gal in church last Sunday ask me, can I cut back my hosta leaves when they're all dried up? What about some of those other plants that maybe don't have the woody structure that would require some pruning?
Okay. I don't do a lot of fall cleanup. There's a couple reasons for that. One, I think that the plant's natural shape holds the leaves and it protects the plant from the snow and the freezing and thawing. You can cut back your hostas. A lot of people like that nice, neat look going into fall. I don't. If the leaves are dead, she's fine to do that.
Okay.
If the leaves are still green, as long as that plant has green leaves, it's bringing in nutrients and carbohydrates into the root system. And you want that. That's why when your tulips are done blooming, you don't cut the leaves off. You want to feed that bulb.
Wait till it all dries up. Okay.
And it's the same with your fall plants. I will pull out dead leaves. I will clean up a little bit that way. But as far as like my mums and my peonies, I leave everything there.
Okay.
And I think that that helps capture the snow and provides
moisture,
insulation, and insulation for it.
Yep.
And you know, I do some mulching in the fall, but very lightly.
Okay.
My garden is to the point that it's very easy maintenance gardening, because I have a big garden and I don't have a lot of time to do fussy plants.
Do you treat your kind of perennial garden, lawn garden, different than you would treat your vegetable garden? I mean, in a vegetable garden, do you want to scrape that clear?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Get rid of those vines and things?
My vegetable garden, I've dug my potatoes and carrots, and my beans were done, so I pulled those out and gave them to the chickens. And that has, I do raised beds, so I've done the trowel thing, cleaned them up, pulled any weeds that are left in there.
Okay.
And now I have dressed it with some compost to compost all winter long through this into the spring.
Great. Give it a chance to decompose and work into the dirt.
And if you are from a agriculture area where you have fresh compost, it's best to put that on in the fall so that it has all winter to decompose. If you put fresh manure on in the spring, of course, it's too hot.
Yep. So have a chance to burn those new seedlings coming through.
Absolutely.
Right. And any particular favorites that you have?
I love worm castings.
Oh, okay.
I think that stuff is heaven on earth. And I like it because it doesn't smell. It's kind of a granular. And I knew the first time I saw it 10, 12 years ago that it was going to be wonderful stuff. I grow magnificent tomatoes, peppers. You can put it with seedlings. I've put it on my house plants. I've planted my tulips in it. It is
worm castings,
and it will not burn.
And it will not burn.
I also use a kind of an sale watcher. So when someone has a big sale on organic fertilizers, I'll grab fish meal or bat guano or whatever it is, bone meal, love bone meal, and whatever it happens to be, and then I just mix it all together with the worm castings and I top dress my beds. And on my perennials, I take a Dixie cup and I side dress each perennial in the fall.
You also mentioned pulling weeds, and that's really important. You know, you kind of think, oh, I'm done harvesting, I'll just let those go. But it is amazing in the fall how quickly new weeds can put seed heads on.
Absolutely.
That is so important to get those out of there.
And this is, because it's been dry, it's been a great weeding year. I've actually stayed on top of it. But you don't want weeds to root themselves. And in the fall, if the weeds go to seed, obviously, you're going to have more in the spring to have to pull up.
Right.
Do try to get the roots, especially when it gets to be the quackgrass and things like that. You want to try to get the whole long root out of there, because any piece of it will come up as a new plant.
Be sturdy next spring. So, and a lot of what fall is about is giving you a fresh, clean start for the spring, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep. All right.
And my beds in the spring, I will have my beds planted far before anybody who has the big rototilling garden, because they're cleaned, ready to go, composted. I just use a trowel and clean them up.
Yep. Now, you don't put mulch over your vegetable garden?
I don't. I used to take like hay that wasn't suitable for horses and top mulch it, but there's so much weed seed in it that I just ended up with foxglove and lamb's quarter and all those kind of things that fields have. And so I kind of leave them bare. I will mow my leaves and into a coarse mulch and just lightly put leaves over the top of it.
Just to keep that dirt settled
just to keep it so that the wind doesn't blow it away.
All right, sounds good. Fertilizing. People often ask, should I be fertilizing as plants are going dormant, or will that cause new growth that you don't want that will damage the plant in the colder weather?
I recommend fall fertilizing.
Okay.
Now, probably through the beginning of November, because this is where your plants are putting the carbohydrates into the roots.
Okay.
And even though they're going into dormancy, they're really pulling food into those roots to get through our Minnesota winter.
Kind of storing up the fat.
Exactly,
for the winter. Just
like a bear would. And in your lawn especially, because of the ecology of putting all these fertilizers on our earth, they are recommending less of this 5-step fertilizing that they used to do. My recommendation, and what has been being researched, if you put a fall winterizer on your lawn, that feeds the lawn. You get a beautiful flush in the spring. It's already healthy because it wasn't starving through the winter. And then just the natural buildup of the soil then. And if you can try to use an organic fertilizer on your lawn, like millerorganite or even worm castings.
All the better.
I guess golf courses are using the worm castings.
Are they?
To make beautiful.
Okay.
Your organic matter is slower to break down. It stays in the soil longer. Your chemical fertilizer breaks down immediately, feeds it. It's a mad rush of carbohydrates to that plant. and it just wears out faster.
then
It's
it's
kind of like
over.
a chocolate candy bar versus
it's like a sugar rush.
you know, a
Versus
good bean
oatmeal.
salad, yeah, or oatmeal.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Okay.
And so it is, if you're limited with money or are trying to be a little more ecological, that fall fertilizing is your best bet for your lawn.
Okay.
It will feed it and do a nice job for it.
And don't cut it too short.
Oh, yes. My husband and I debate this because he likes it short. And ideally, Minnesota grass should be 4 inches. We have compromised in my family to 3.5 inches. And my lawn through this dry summer looks pretty good. Other than where the big trees are, it's still pretty green. And so you don't want to mow it real short right before winter because that plant can't recover to hold the snow, and it's not protected from the snow layer or anything. So it's important to keep that lawn mowed at a higher height.
Shelley, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing all your knowledge. And as folks get ready for winter, there's a lot on that fall to-do list, but that'll give you some ideas about what you can be doing this time of year. Thanks again for joining us.
All right, thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Garden Connections. I look forward to seeing you next time.